Hey friends, happy Saturday, April 6th, Saturday of the octave of Easter. It's nice to be with you. I'm Father Bill Hill, priest at Holy Spirit Catholic Community in Rock Springs, Wyoming. I will share with you a daily reading, a reflection on the daily reading. The readings are linked down below. Click the link, read the readings prayerfully, and turn off the screen. Spend some time with God before you move on to other things. If you work regular work weeks, I hope you get some time for some rest and some recreation in these days. A weekend different than last weekend with all of the church stuff and family stuff and Easter stuff. If it takes us 40 days to prepare for Easter in Lent, 50 days to party and to rejoice. So I do encourage us to continue to be people of joy and gladness. Let those alleluias be on our lips as we rejoice that Jesus is truly risen from the dead and has conquered sin and death, right? I think we have a reading from the Acts of the Apostles today and a reading from Mark's Gospel. Acts of the Apostles, we are getting close to the end of this cycle. Remember that this began with Peter and John healing a disabled man at Solomon's portico, and then preaching to a crowd, and then being hauled before the high priestly class and being chastised. And now we kind of have them being threatened and told not to do this anymore. We're going to miss the reading on Monday because we're going to have the Annunciation of the Lord. But Monday, they would go back to the community of the disciples and they would rejoice. And the room where they were shakes in the power of the Spirit. And it's an affirmation that they are doing the will of God, right? And that especially is kind of one of the themes that we pick up in the story today. Peter and John tell the priests, we have to do what God commands, not what you command. We have to be obedient to the will of the Lord. And that's always a good thing for us to keep tracking on, right? This is a challenge for me that, I need to make sure that as I seek to live obedience, seek to live as a leader in the church and in the institution and the structures of the church, still that I'm not conflating in every way the will of God for me as what I'm called to do in the church, right? The will of God is something that we need to discern deep in our hearts. And if we aren't listening to that deepest call of who we are, we can at times lose track of that call. And Peter and John were able to be really rooted in who they were and how God was working in them so that they were able to recognize what God was doing. And whatever our call in life is, whatever that inclination is, it's good for us to stay plugged in to that wellspring of living water that wells up within us, that is the call of God in our lives, right? And that's always a tension there. Whether it's in the church, whether it's in society, whether it's in our family, whether it's in our friendship group, and that fundamental integrity of who we are and what the Lord's calling us to. The other thing that I found worthwhile to pray with was the image that the priests recognized that these were companions of Jesus. It just struck me, right? A few days ago, well, I guess a week ago, we read what happened with these companions of Jesus. Peter is like, I'm going to die with you. And Jesus is like, you would die with me? I tell you what, man, before the cock crows twice, you're going to deny me 3 times. These companions of Jesus were not necessarily the most hardy of companions. And of course, John is associated with the disciple whom Jesus loved, who stands at the foot of the cross, and is given care of Mary, the mother of Jesus. And so these companions of Jesus are completely remade in Pentecost. And we have a little bit of a time warp right now because we are moving towards Pentecost, the end of the 50 days. But we're reading these stories of the Acts of the Apostles of what happens as a result of the Holy Spirit filling these disciples. And these companions of Jesus are completely remade and made new as a result of their experience of the Holy Spirit. Perhaps we just pray into our own experiences of the Holy Spirit as well and ask that we might be made bold and powerful like Peter and John. Mark's Gospel. this is oftentimes taken to be a bit of a summary of different kinds of stories of the resurrection. We hear here, the first proclamation and the story of the road to Emmaus, and then also the sending forth that we get in Matthew's gospel, right? He said to them, go into the whole world and proclaim the gospel to every creature. Two things strike me in this description of Mark. One, Jesus rebuking the 11, this is the apostles, for their unbelief, their hardness of heart. Just striking, right? Like this is the core group of the disciples, and they get rebuked by Jesus for unbelief and hardness of heart. Hardness of heart. Unwillingness to change, unwillingness to believe different, unwillingness to trust that God is doing something different. Fascinating. And then the other piece is go into the whole world, proclaiming the gospel to every creature. Perhaps we can share the good news of our faith with Jesus with our dog and our cat and our cactus and our fern and all creatures, like St. Francis did, to share the goodness that we've experienced with absolutely everybody. All right, friends, read those readings prayerfully. Turn off the screen. Spend some time with God before you move on to other things. Happy Saturday. Get some rest. God bless y'all.